What advice would you give to someone who wants to step out of their comfort zone and become a better speaker?
How you articulate yourself, the authority with which you convey your ideas could get you the sale.
How can we add more value to our organization, perhaps if we're in a junior role?
We get things done so much quicker these days because we can harness the power of these new technologies.
What advice do you have for people who want to make a change? As you put it, dance with disruption.
So what I've learnt over many years is that we think we're more in control than we really are.
Hello and welcome to Coffee Charged Conversations. Today we are back at Real Global Productions and we are joined by a very special guest in Nikki Bush, who is a human potential and parenting expert. She's a multi-award winning speaker and 5-time best-selling author. She's known for breaking down challenging topics into actionable solutions. Her corporate clients often refer to her as the talent whisperer, as she's able to identify and nurture individual and team potential. Nikki is the only woman to have been inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame and the Educator Hall of Fame by the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa. She's also one of just 700 global speakers to have held the prestigious Certified Speaking Professional designation. Her latest book, Future Proof Yourself, teaches you how to win in work and in life. Nikki has also featured in almost 5,000 media interviews. Nikki, welcome to Coffee Charged Conversations.
Thank you, Mike. It's wonderful to be with you.
So, you've obviously done your fair share of talks. What advice would you give to someone who wants to step out of their comfort zone and become a better speaker?
Well, communication is a life skill. And if you want to be in business, whether you're employed or whether you are self-employed, communication skills and being able to convey your thoughts, package your thoughts, and sell your ideas is critical. So throughout your working life, you need to be brushing up on these skills all the time. It doesn't mean that you need to become a professional speaker like me. In other words, I speak for a living. But even if you don't speak for a living, how you articulate yourself, the authority with which you convey your ideas could get you the sale. So if you're setting up your own business, you need to be persuasive, you need to be clear, you need to get your message across, you need to help your message to land. And more than anything, whenever you're presenting, whether it's a sales pitch, whether it is, what I do for a living, you need to be adding value. There's no point opening your mouth if you're not adding value. And that really is the key. If you're confident that you're adding value, you'll also be more confident in how you tell the story.
So we have a lot of listeners who are in that 24 to 30-year-old age group. And I know a lot of us are starting out in our careers, or, maybe we've been a few years in a particular industry. How can we add more value to our organization, perhaps if we're in a junior role?
I love this age group, this sort of 24 to 35 age group. They are just, you fall right into this age group. Both my children fall into this age group. And you're the new kids on the block. And you bring such a different perspective to business. You bring a fresh perspective. You think differently. I think that the real strength in businesses today is finding that sweet spot, harnessing the wisdom of both the older generation and the younger generation and bringing them together. So, for example, you guys were literally born with cell phones in your hands. You can navigate technology with a confidence that the 50 to 60-year-olds can't. I mean, we use devices for communication and to get our message across and to sell, and we're getting pretty good at it, I must say, if you're open to learning. But most people in that kind of 45 to 65 age group were not the early adopters. You guys weren't even early adopters. It's just in you. At the speed at which you can navigate a cell phone screen and swipe left and right and up and down, and you're not thinking how to do it, you just do it. And the way you can harness the power of artificial intelligence is also more innate than it is for older people. And I'm not saying that I'm elderly in any way, shape, or form, but I know, because I work with my son who runs his own business called Strategic Digital, that when I throw something out, a challenge that my business is facing or something I want to create, he can pull all those technological digital AI tools together in 2 seconds flat. And we get things done so much quicker these days because we can harness the power of these new technologies. And I'm grateful for that, because I'm learning how to become much more confident with these tools because I have a younger running mate. So I think if we see ourselves running in parallel with each other, maximizing each other's strengths, because what you as a younger generation don't have is experience and wisdom, because that only comes with time and with practice and with learning what works and what doesn't work. And I can say with, full honesty, as an entrepreneur and as a solopreneur, and I've been running my own business for 30 years now, you learn from experience. You learn by doing. And the other thing that slightly older people have, over and above experience and wisdom, is we have networks of connections. Now, when you first come into this working space, 25 to 35 years of age, the big thing you lack is a network. And when COVID hit, I felt really, really sorry for younger people who were very new in the workplace, because you don't have wisdom, you don't have experience, you've never experienced this kind of global freeze before, and you don't have a network. And I was in my mid-50s when COVID hit. And I went, I'm so glad I'm my age. I'm so glad I have my network. I'm so glad I know what it feels like to go through hard times, knowing that I'll come out of hard times. When you're young, you might not have had hard times that you can look back on and go, well, I got through that. I've got a bit of resilience. I can do it again. And so when you've been around for a while, you gather experiences, you gather wisdom, you gather people. And all 3 of those things are important if you want to succeed in life.
Without that network, sometimes it feels, I'll just speak for myself, sometimes it feels like you don't always have someone to turn to. And that's where it does help having those intergenerational chats, because, we at least have someone who's experienced something that we could possibly go through. What words of wisdom would you have for young people?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. You're not born knowing everything. And you really do need to ask questions of people who you respect. Look for people who've walked the walk. So if you want to, say, for example, learn about generating wealth, something that I did really badly in my early years, I was putting money away, but I was good at earning money, but I had no idea how to grow wealth. They are 2 different things. So the one conversation I think you need to have, or many conversations with people, is around wealth creation, because you should be putting money into investments from the first time that you earn a salary. And the thing we're never taught at school, I wasn't taught, you were not taught at school, is the value of compound interest, the magic of compound interest. And you need to have two streams of income. One is that you go out and you sell your skills and your knowledge for money, for a salary, or if you're building your own business, you are invoicing for your time and your expertise. That is one income stream, and that is going to work and earning income. But then you need to take some of that income and put it to work for you. So when you're earning income, you go to work. When you harness the power of compound interest, you put your money out there to work for you. So you have two income streams. Nobody explained it to me like this when I was young, but it is so simple, actually. And one of the things that we grow up thinking is that money is complicated and creating wealth is complicated. It actually isn't, but it is about the discipline of the debit order and putting something aside every month on purpose, not what's left at the end of the month. There'll never be anything left if you do it that way, but it's putting money aside intentionally with all your other payments that go off your account, even if you're only starting off with a couple of R100 a month going off, and gradually you grow that. And it just becomes part and parcel of your life, and you leave your assets to grow, and you don't dip into them. So it is about discipline. So have the wealth creation conversations with people who've gone before you, who have made money. If you want to build your own business, speak to entrepreneurs who are older than you, who've walked the road before. There is so much wisdom out there. You just have to ask. So it's being bold and humble enough and brave enough to be prepared to ask, because people will give. The world is a much more generous place than you think. So I would say money, running a business, and if you know people who've got good relationships, good marriages, ask questions. How did you make this happen? There is no success that happens in a vacuum. And when you ask people enough questions, you'll find they have a bit of a recipe. You want people to share those recipes with you so that you can go and do it for yourself. And I promise you, you can read as much as you like out of books. And that's one kind of wisdom. But you need to go and discover the lived wisdom, because that's different. It's got a greater depth.
So what are your five, I know that you've done various talks on this, but what are your 5 X factors for success?
Okay, so you come out of school or university with a report card, but you are way bigger than your report card, because your report card is just one aspect of who you are. It's just one part of your brain that's been tested and documented, but you're a whole being. You come with your own life experience to this point. So let's take the age of 24, 25. For the most part, you've been through school, you've now finished your tertiary qualification, if you did one. Now you're hitting the world of work. You bring your academic experience to the table. You also bring your personality to the table, and you bring all your lived experience to the table. And every single human being has a different basket of goods, has an individual fingerprint. You are unique and you're an individual. So what happens is you come out of tertiary education and you are told to create a CV. Go and build your CV. And the CV is pretty predictable. The first page is, your name, where you live, your age, what languages you speak. You got a driver's license. Okay, tick, tick, tick. Then you get on to the next part, which is your academic qualifications. Then you get to the next part, which is your work experience. Don't underestimate any of your student VAC experience that you've done, or even what you may have done as a school child when you were in high school, and you went and worked on holiday camps and you went on mission trips or whatever it is. Those things count because they're part of what makes you who you are. But there's a whole nother part of you that is full of stories, and you need to capture your stories, because your stories are what makes you truly unique. Because you might come out of university with a BCom. Well, how many other people have got BComs? Thousands. There are some people who do very niche degrees, but there's a lot of people who do very general degrees. So when you sit for a job interview or send off your CV, you want your CV to stand out. You need to convert it to a talent profile. And I'm getting to the 5 X factors here. Your talent profile has got all the CV information in it, but you've colored it in with your experiences and your stories. And I'm going to give you 5 X factors for success, which are the 5 categories that you need to go and look at and curate stories from your life that fit into these categories and X factors. So if I am interviewing you, Mike, for a job, I'm going to ask you about these 5 things. Tell me about how creative and innovative you are, because that's the lifeblood of business in the future, is innovation, thinking differently, thinking out the box. The second thing I want to know is, how resilient are you? Because the world is full of no guarantees anymore. It's unpredictable. So I'm going to say that again. The world that we see today is a world of no guarantees. It's not one job for life, one qualification will do for the rest of your life. And it's full of disruption and change. So I want to know how resilient you are. How do you bounce back when things get tough or when life throws you a curveball? And then the third one is your learning journey. Do you have a love of learning? Because one qualification is not going to cut it for the rest of your life. Are you doing micro learning, micro courses, micro certifications? What are you reading at the moment? That makes you interesting. And you don't have to be reading and doing micro courses in your specialty, because I actually quite like a broad thinking individual, because the world is now sitting at an intersection of humanities and sciences. So you might come in with a science qualification, but can you apply it in more of a human context, for example? Or you come in with a BA, which is kind of a very general degree, but now we're going to throw you into a part of the business that's dealing with AI. How are you going to cope with that? So we've dealt with innovation and creativity, resilience, loving learning for your whole life. Then how well do you know yourself? So self-knowledge is very important. If you enter a corporate, they're going to put you through all kinds of assessments, those will give you information about yourself. But you might do some of these privately yourself. There's lots of personal development out there. What are you doing? Are you listening to podcasts around well-being and psychological safety and all sorts of things? What are you listening to? Those things will help you know yourself better. And then the last one is, if I put you in a team, what value are you going to add to that team? What unique value do you bring with you? What are your strengths in a team? You might be the great problem solver. You might be the communicator. You might be the humorist who keeps everyone happy. You see, we go back to what I said earlier. You are bigger than your report card because you are a human being. And so think about when you've been in a sports team. Think about when you have been on a project team, when you've been working on something for a degree as a team. What was your role? Because we all lead in different ways. And that's probably part of the wisdom that I want to share with you and your followers today, is that there's no one way to do life. There are so many ways, so many paths to where you want to get to. In the past, there was one way. Today, we have so many options. You want to get into accounting, you don't have to go and become a CA. There are so many avenues to get into accounting today, and it doesn't necessarily require a degree. So the world is shifting away from this absolute, must have a degree or 2 or 3, to let's see what your skills are. Let's see what your strengths are. And I want to see that commitment to learning, to adding to your talent profile on a continuous basis, because the world is changing so fast. If we don't commit to the learning journey, we are going to get left far behind.
I think in the past, people used to have one linear way of working, and it was like, this is the job I'm going to get into, and I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. And nowadays, there's a lot more job hopping, and people leave once they've gotten what they need out of a certain company. When would you say is the right time to leave your job?
So you're looking at somebody who has run her own business for 30 years, was in the workforce employed for about 10 years before that. So I'm really showing my age here. Just the right side of 60. And I was ahead of my time because I moved jobs every 18 to 24 months back in the day, which was quite quick. Now, young people today move every 8 to 18 months, probably. I moved when my earning curve flattened out or my learning curve flattened out. I love being in a situation where I've got a steep learning curve because it's juicy and meaty and I'm growing. It's not easy when you put yourself in a place where your learning curve is like that, but that's how we grow. We don't grow in our comfort zone. We have to put ourselves out of our comfort zone. And you were telling me that starting this podcast was actually quite tough for you because you are by nature an introvert. I have to tell you a secret. I was the shyest child at school. And I decided one day when I was around 13 years old that shyness was not going to serve me if I wanted to be very successful. And I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, just like you are pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Because that's what we have to do. You know, we have to work out what serves us and what doesn't. And then we have to make a plan for getting around those things that don't serve us. Sometimes we can just drop them. Sometimes we have to work really hard at them. So I was moving jobs every 18 to 24 months. But I will give you a piece of advice. Don't leave before you learn. If things get just a tad difficult and rough, or you don't like your boss, don't leave too soon, unless you can quantify what you learnt from the experience. And I'll give you an example of something that happened to me, and I'm trying to think, was it my third or my fourth job? I was working in a public relations company. Now, what people don't know about me, and you were saying that, you know, you get into a lane and it goes straight and you know you're going to start here and you're going to end there. That doesn't happen anymore. I've had 3 careers. So when I say I'm ahead of the curve, I've had a portfolio of careers. And young people today will have a portfolio of careers. You will not have one career. And you said there's a lot of hopping around. Yes, there is a lot of hopping around. So I've done that. I know what it feels like, and I know how it can really benefit you to work in different industries and to bring a whole lot of different work experiences together. So I'm working in this business. It's not my first job. I am still very young. I was about 24, 25 at the time. And my immediate boss was not a good teacher. I was being taken to top listed companies. We had the PR accounts for all these big listed companies in South Africa. And I was with him. He was the account director. I was the account executive. I had won prizes for the best writing skills in public relations. I'd had previous jobs. I was very decent at my job, if not good at my job at that point, because they only employed the best. And I would write the press releases, and he would look at them, and he would put his pen through my work and say nothing. He wouldn't help me. He wouldn't tell me what I'd done wrong. He wouldn't guide me. He would leave me to stew in my office next door. And it was a really, really tough time because I thought I'd done a pretty good job. But he thought I could do better. Now, he had been one of the deputy editors of the Sunday Times he knew his stuff. He was a flipping good writer and an editor. Just wasn't a good teacher, sadly, for me. I woke up every morning with a pit in my stomach. I went to work feeling ill every morning, but I stuck it out for 2 whole years because he was my baptism by fire. This boss was my baptism by fire. You will have a baptism by fire somewhere along the line, but he made me better than good. I was already good, but he made me sharpen my saw, and he pushed me to be better than good. It didn't happen in the best of ways. I think he could have fast-tracked me with a little bit more advice, but he made me really look at my stuff and go, this isn't good enough. I better try another way. And I stuck it out for 2 whole years before I left. And it was such a relief to leave, but I left better than I began. So stay for long enough to learn the lesson. Lie on the floor for long enough before you get up. And that's what young people don't know how to do or don't think they should do. The minute they don't like the person on the desk next to them, or their boss says something that makes them feel a little twitchy, they jump ship. Don't jump ship too quickly, because you might not have learnt enough. You've got to be able to quantify what you've learned while you've been there before you think about leaving.
It's tough though, because you've got this one generation, our generation, which is seen by many as soft. And then you've got the bite the bullet kind of generation where it's like, just put your head down, no matter what happens, stick it out. It's quite hard to navigate that in between.
I think, and I have believed this for a long time, millennials, because this is the millennials you're talking about, came to teach us something really important, that life is about more than just work. That we need to build a life that is a multifaceted life. It's not all about work. Work is one aspect of it. But we do need to understand that work is where we generate the money that enables us to do the other things. So we need to think of money and work as an enabler, not a prison. So how are you leveraging your job to build your talent profile, to make you more interesting in the next opportunity you take to move on somewhere else? How are you leveraging your income to create an outcome in your life? So those are some frameworks that I would plant in the minds of our audience today. Is wherever you find yourself right now, whether you're in the perfect job or a place where you're going, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can last any longer. Ask yourself first, how am I leveraging this to color in my talent profile to make me more interesting? And currently I'm earning X, which may not be, and this is another reason why people move on, because of the money factor. You may not be earning the best salary right now, but what are you learning?
Experience.
So the earning and learning curve are interrelated. Your salary might not be great, but my goodness, you might be working with this icon of a person and you're on an intern salary, but what are you learning from this person who is iconic in your industry? And slipstreaming with somebody iconic can add so much value to your CV that in the next job interview, when you can say, I spent 12 months in the shadow of so-and-so, who is a known quantity when you are not a known quantity, well, suddenly you've rubbed shoulders with somebody who has influence, and it makes you more valuable.
So change can be quite scary. So there will be people who know that they're sitting in their comfort zone, or they're in a job where they know that they could move on. What advice do you have for people who want to make a change, as you put it, dance with disruption, but they're fearful of what lies ahead.
So when you get into a comfort zone, why it's called a comfort zone is because you kind of control most of the levers. Okay, it's comfortable because you know what to expect. There are no surprises. But all of our real growth and learning lies on the edges of the pond, beyond our comfort zone, where you're going to step into a place where you don't know everything, where you don't know all the people. You can be really successful, and I see many young, very successful, smart people in their 20s. And some of my most exciting clients are in their early 30s and have found themselves leading companies in their early 30s. And it's a really, really important thing to kind of get a feel for when it's time to move on, when things get a little too comfortable, when everything's too predictable, and start pushing to the edges of the pond. That may mean, if you're employed, saying to your boss, I feel like I'm too comfortable. I feel like I need to push myself a bit. If you are in the position of working for a big corporate, there are firstly many learning opportunities available to you if you ask. So ask, what else can I learn? What's in the learning portal? What courses can I do that would make me more valuable to you? So we go back to what we said earlier in the conversation. How do you add value? You don't just stand up and speak unless you're adding value. So when you're sitting in a group, in a boardroom, or in a meeting room, or if you're self-employed, in a mastermind group of people, because that's another important thing, is creating mastermind groups of people who work in disparate jobs to you, disparate industries, but you all get together and you share what you've learned and what your best practice is, because you can learn so much from each other that way. But what could I study? What could I learn? Are there some micro-certifications within the organization that would make me more valuable to this division, this department, to you as my boss? When you're in business, it's about value creation. You will get the increase. You will get the promotion if you are adding value. In your own business, you only get more business from customers and clients if you can prove the value that you're adding. So whenever you are selling, what you should be selling about yourself is, this is the value I can bring to this team. This is the value I can bring to your organization. So it's owning that. And if you are in your own business, which many young people are, striking out on their own, sometimes it's about going and adding a micro-certification. Sometimes it's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone like you have with this podcast. You need to go and join communities. Like I've just mentioned, a mastermind group, getting a whole bunch of mates together, or just people you've met along the way and saying, could we meet once a month and share what we've experienced in the past month? And talk about our challenges, talk about our needs, and talk about what leads we could share with each other. So that's an interesting way of growing your value and growing your network. You could join an industry association. So I'm part of the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, and there we are all speakers who speak for a living. We don't speak as part of our job. We earn a big portion of our income from speaking. You could be an engineer. Are you a member of the Professional Engineers Association? Are you a conveyancer? There's an association for conveyancers. There are so many associations, and you just have to pay your annual fee, and you get to be part of that association. You get to go to regular meetings. You get to network with people. who are building businesses or careers in that particular area. We've got to find our tribes. And we've got to push out of our comfort zone, because being an entrepreneur, I must tell you, is quite a lonely thing, especially to begin with when you don't employ people, you don't have a team, you're a solopreneur, and you're in your little office when you're not out there touting for business. You're in your office all by yourself. And when you've come from university where you've been quite social, or you've come from school, or you've come from a big organization, a big company, and now you're striking out on your own, you had a whole department that you saw every day, or you were part of this team. Now you're building your own team. To begin with, it's lonely. So you've got to find ways to socialize and network and feel part of communities, because loneliness is one of the things in life that kills. And it doesn't just kill old people. It can kill young people. So you've got to keep that in the back of your mind all the time, is how can I put myself out there and be part of bigger groups? Because those groups will feed and support you.
So you speak about groups now. It's quite strange, the timing of this, because I've just joined last week the South African Podcasters Guild. So at least I feel like now I have a bit of a community to ask questions and, learn from other people. Whereas in the beginning, it definitely, and up until now, it has felt very lonely. It feels like I'm just trying to figure out the stuff as I go. And sometimes having that community really does help.
So that community, and I commend you for doing that. You've reached out, and you want to be part of something that you're going to get something from. But the best thing to do in those communities is to give. The sooner you give and you join, say, the committee, the organizing committee that organizes all the monthly meetings, and you get on that committee, the sooner you will learn who's who in the zoo, and the sooner people will learn who you are. The more people know who you are and what you do, the more they will send opportunities your way. So opportunity comes when you are, I always say that there's no luck. It's where preparedness and opportunity meet. So you need to always be sharpening your skills. That's the preparedness, your skills and your knowledge. And you need to be ready for when opportunity strikes. You need to be in the right place at the right time, which means putting yourself out there in groups where opportunities are floating around. And when opportunities float around and one person in that podcasting group doesn't want to take advantage of it, but they know what you like to do with your podcast, they'll send that amazing person for you to interview your way. And you just need to get that one iconic person to interview for your podcast to take off. But you might not know who those people are or have a back door to get to them. But other people might have the back door for you. So the more you interact with these people, the more you ask questions and be interested in them, the more they will be interested in you. And this is one of my whispers of wisdom for young talent, is that you need to be both interesting and interested, because the world is not just about you. If you are interested in other people, it comes around. They will become interested in you, and they will feed you opportunities. And the thing is, there's enough out there to go around. Have an abundance mentality. Don't have a scarcity mentality. Scarcity mentality, when you're protecting your turf all the time and you don't share, your world becomes quite small. The more you give, the more you get.
That is brilliant advice. You mention speaking human in some of your talks. What does it mean for someone to speak human, or for a company to speak human?
So this speaking career of mine has gone in some interesting directions. And you mentioned earlier that I also specialize in parenting. And for 25 years, I've been the parenting expert. And then around 10 years ago, I started inching into the corporate space around millennials in the workplace and how people travel in tribes. If you employ one good person, look at who they socialize with, because they've probably got some good friends you could employ too. So it's very, very important that we realize, and now I speak very much into leadership in large organizations, that the world has changed. And I know millennials will be going, yes, we knew that all along. Top-down command and control generally in leadership doesn't work so well anymore, unless you're in a crisis. COVID was a crisis. We needed leaders to step up and do top-down command and control, like, in the military, when there's a crisis, you listen to the leader, the commander, because if you don't, you will be dead. So there is a place for top-down command and control. But it used to be that was the way you led everything. Now we need to lead, not just from our position and our role and our title, but we need to lead authentically from who we are, from our place of influence, which means, going back to the talent profile, we lead from our talent profile, not one aspect, but from our whole talent profile, because we bring all of that experience and wisdom to the table. And today, leaders are being called to be vulnerable and authentic. And most leaders, particularly older people, don't know how to lead from that space, but I do. So I help people from their 30s right into their 60s to speak more human, because when we speak more human, we're coming from that vulnerable, authentic, real space. And we come from a place of not just, this is the vision, this is the mission, but I also come from a place of care. Because psychological safety in the workplace is incredibly important today, because the world is changing at such a rapid rate, and disruption makes people feel uncomfortable, vulnerable, and we need to help our people to dance with change, to navigate change by choice as a leader. If I can take my team through disruption and help them see that it can be a catalyst for growth, and help them to work through their crisis and work through all their fears and come out the other side as a bigger person, if I have traveled with my people, then they will trust me. They will stay with me for longer. So if you want to retain your talent as a leader, you need to be able to speak more human. And we live in a world of customized everything. Customized product, customized sales. I mean, just think about your generation. You are used to customized everything. Your parents customized everything for you too. And they told you you were the best, and you were incredible, and you were an absolute star. And then you went to university and realized everyone else thought the same thing too. That their parents had also told them how brilliant they were. But now you're in a sea of brilliance. Everybody's a shining star. And suddenly the playing fields were leveled. So we now go to work where everybody's a genius as well, because everyone wants to employ geniuses. But actually you start realizing that you've got a far way to go. So if leaders in business want to keep their best talent, they have to learn how to do customized leadership. So the way you would motivate Nikki Bush is very different from the way you would motivate Mike over here. And as a leader, you need to know that for Mike, I need to know that Mike is X age. What are his values right now? What does he value? What's important to him? Because what's important to you, Mike, right now in your life is very different to what's important to me. How you spend your income, where you spend your money, your time, and your energy will indicate what you value most. I need to know where you spend your money, your time, and your energy. And where you spend those three things is very different to where I spend them. Firstly, by virtue of our age and stage. And secondly, by virtue of our life experiences. And thirdly, by virtue of where we want to go. So knowing that is critically important if you want to lead people in a customized way that is meaningful to them. So we go back to the millennials have said, there has to be more than just work. You want to build meaningful lives. And I think that is the gift that you have brought to the world, is that there must be more to life than work. There must be meaning in life. And I totally agree with that. And I am grateful to what the younger generation has brought to the table. As a business leader myself, and as a leader of leaders, this is what I take to the table. And it has been very much informed by being a parent, by living through less than happy circumstances. I lost my husband 7 years ago. He was murdered in a home invasion. All these things go to inform how I work with leaders, the empathy that I have for them. And I teach how to have that empathy for the direct reports you have in your teams. Have I learned this out of a textbook? Hell no. Have I learned this through my life experience? Hell yes. And so my brand of leadership that I teach is very different to anybody else's. Does it work? Hell yes. Which is why leaders come to me.
So I don't want to get to 60, look back at my life and go, what was I doing? And I think that a lot of people nowadays are, like you say, they're looking back at their life and from an earlier age in their 20s and going, am I valuing the right things at the moment? You refer to it not as work-life balance, but work-life integration, which I really like. How can we strive towards work-life integration?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a very visual picture here. I want you to imagine a seesaw. So go back to your childhood days when your mum took you to the playground or you were at school and there was a seesaw. So a seesaw goes up and down. How often is a seesaw in perfect balance?
Not often.
Not often. For a split second every now and again, it's in perfect balance. That's life. That's life. That's real life. Real life is like a seesaw. It's going to go up and down all the time. As long as it's in motion of going up and down, you're good. The minute it gets stuck up or down, you're in trouble. So the thing is not to get stuck. When you're going through a tough time, and I call it the messy middle, everybody goes through the messy middle over and over again if you're growing and if life is real, because life is going to throw you curveballs. It is not going to unfold in a straight line. It's going to throw you curveballs you did not expect. A curveball might not be a tragedy. A curveball may be a sideways move. A sideways move, as I often tell people in corporates, is not a bad thing, because it might put you in a different division, different department. Yes, you might not get the salary increase, but say they move you into sales. You never thought you'd be in sales. If I had one piece of advice to anybody who is corporately employed or in their own business, you should embrace a stint in sales, because sales keeps every business going. It is the lifeblood of businesses, is new sales. As an entrepreneur, I'm in sales every day, even though my job description is not sales. I am in sales every day. And if you're not selling, you're not in business. So we need to always be connecting and always be selling and always be communicating. Those things are vital to make sure that you get where you want to go. and you're going to take many sideways twists and turns. It is never going to be unidirectional. And that's part of what makes it interesting, is the fact that there will be a fork in the road, and which fork are you going to take? And it actually doesn't really matter which fork you take, ultimately. It's what you do with that decision. It's where you go with it, where you take it. So going back to the seesaw, it's going to go up and down, up and down. There's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be a winning streak of being up, and then suddenly something's going to come and knock that seesaw out again. And that's okay. You are going to find your way. You can't think your way through this all the time. You've got to do your way. You can sit in the corner of this couch and you can read all the books by all the gurus. That is not going to qualify you for success. If you don't take that knowledge and go and try it out, be brave enough to put that knowledge into action, it's just up here in your head. And it's not going to help you grow into a better business person, a more successful person, grow a better business. You've got to put words and knowledge into action to turn it into experience and wisdom. It's about getting off the couch, and it's hard. It's scary. It can be really scary to go and try something new. The only way you're going to know if it works is to try it. You tried it with this podcast. And you'll see over time that each podcast gets better and better because your confidence is getting better. Did you come out of school knowing how to do interviews?
Not at all.
Exactly. So you're honing a new skill, and you have no idea where this is going to lead you. Because one day someone's going to sit on this couch, he's going to look at you and go, I've got an idea for you. And it's going to take this in another direction, or it's going to amplify this. And that's the adventure of life, is that there is no perfect balance. There is no one way. And that integration is the word. The integration of all your experiences, the integration of all your connections, the integration of all these interviews, the integration of your personal life and your work life, the integration of what's going to happen when, say, you decide one day to get married and start a family. So I do work with young executives in their 30s who hold extremely influential positions in organizations at a young age. You're talking early 30s, who have now got married and have had their first child, and they come and they sit in my office, in my chair, my coaching chair, and they tell me they want to be the best husband, and they want to be the best dad, and they want to be leading 1,000 people, and they want to be shooting for the $1 billion turnover. That's a big ask. And you're never going to be shooting all the lights out all the time, playing your A game in every one of those roles every minute of every day. It's not humanly possible. But it's to find the right integration that you can win in all those roles, knowing that the seesaw is always doing this, that it's never going to always be up in every role, that when it's up in that role, it might be a bit down in this role, and then the other one's going to come up and it's going to do this, and that's okay. So we've got to get out of our heads this picture of perfection. We are always a work in progress, and that's just the reality of life. And even at my age, in my late 50s now, I'm still learning so much, and I'm still sharpening my saw and getting better at what I do, and still introducing new skills, and still opening myself up to new opportunities. And I still acknowledge I don't know it all, and that's okay.
So you said in one of your talks, I feel like I've been saying that a lot, but you've had a lot of talks. It's unfortunate that suffering comes with our growth.
That our growth lies at the feet of pain, disappointment, and suffering. And in fact, it was the Buddha who alluded to this, if you've ever looked into Buddhism, and I'm not a Buddhist, but it is so true. Even if you look back at your childhood, you will realize that the most important lessons you learned was when things went wrong, when you didn't make the A team, when you had to push harder, when you were getting a C for something and you knew that to get into university you needed those extra marks to get that extra point on the point system. So having a goal is very important. Having a direction is important. Being disciplined in working towards your goal is important. But also being open and listening to the whispers along the way is important, because you can change the goal anytime you like. You might think right now with your current life experience that this is where you're going, but the more life experience and the more wisdom you acquire and the more people you meet, you might realize that there are 4 other directions you can choose, which may be more meaty and yummy than the direction you're currently going in. And at any stage, you can be brave enough to go, actually, I'm going to do a little sideways move here, or a little shift over there. I will promise you one thing, that no experience is ever wasted or forgotten. The good and the bad. So your great experiences that felt fantastic, the pinnacle of success, the things you were good at, the things you did well at, those things are just as important as all the times that weren't so nice. So in any situation, there is collateral damage and collateral beauty. So even when you face the most awful things in your life, you lose a parent, there's a dread disease in the family, there's a divorce, there's a car accident, there's a business that goes up in smoke. Those things also inform us. And I want everybody who's listening to think about those times in their lives that have not been the yummy things, that have been the things you would not wish on your worst enemy. That there is also beauty in those things. And you need to go and do what I call the collateral beauty, collateral damage exercise. You can do it for anything in your life. And you take a page, fold it in half, collateral beauty on one side, collateral damage on the other side, and just download all the cuck, all the bad stuff on the damage side. Anything you can think of. Don't even judge it, just write it down, how you felt, what happened, who the dreadful stuff that happened as a result of something, and write it down and get it out of your head. And then I want you to go onto the other side of the page, the collateral beauty. And I want you to go and write down all the good stuff that happened despite or in spite of this terrible thing, that you lost your job, that you got kicked out, that you got dropped from the team. What happened next? How did you leverage this loss to create something bigger and better? And I promise you, I've done it so many times in my life, the collateral beauty is always way bigger than the collateral damage. And that is the point of perspective, where we can pull ourselves out of the hole. And it doesn't necessarily happen quickly. You've got to work at it, especially when traumatic things happen in your life. But what's traumatic for you and what's traumatic for me can be 2 completely different things. So don't compare your trauma to somebody else's, but work with what it gave you. Work with what it brings. Work with the self-discovery that comes through the traumatic experience, because you can grow from it. And when you sit in that job interview one day and you get asked, let's go back to those X factors for success, because if I was interviewing you right now and saying to you, so Mike, tell me about a time when the chips were down, when all hell broke loose in your life. Tell me about that time and tell me how you got through it. Because I need to know, Mike, and this is the reason I'm not saying this to you, Mike, in the interview, but in my head, as the managing director or the CEO or the COO or the HR person, I'm going, I know what's coming in this business. I know what's coming with AI. And I know that I might be employing you in this job right now. But in 2 months' time, I may send you over there, and I want to know if you're going to cope with me uprooting you and putting you in a place you've never been to do a job you don't even think you're qualified to do. That's how quickly the world of work is changing. Is that I want to know if you're resilient and adaptable and flexible enough for me to transplant you. So that's the world we live in. Your X factors for success are going to be critical when you're selling yourself to a client or whether you're selling yourself in for your next job. They're going to ask you for stories. And I want everybody listening here today to take a piece of paper, sit down for an hour, map out those 5 X factors for success. Find some stories you can talk about how innovative and creative you were, how you thought outside the box in a situation. It doesn't have to have happened in the last month. You can talk about something you did at school. You can talk about something you did on a trip with mates somewhere where the car broke down. Because, how did you think outside the box? That's what I want to know. It could be that you came up with this brilliant idea that took a client to a different place. Then you need to think about resilience stories, how you bounced back. Then you must think about learning. Tell me about your learning. What are you voluntarily choosing to read, study, etc.? That tells me a lot about you. If you come in and I say, what are you reading at the moment? Well, nothing much. What courses have you done recently? Well, no, nothing. Do I want you on my team? No, I don't. And then, of course, how well do you know yourself? Have you got stories that taught you about who you are and what your strengths are? Because I want to know about those strengths. How well do you know yourself? What are your weaknesses? It's important that you know that actually, no, I'm not a numbers person. I'm a words person. That can, it's knowing who you are, your strengths, knowing. Now, I'll tell you something about my eldest son. He is the person, because this is probably an important place to start closing off, is who you are is going to be far more important than what you do or what you sell. Now, I don't even know what qualification you have, but I know you've had a career in ranking golf courses, so you must be a pretty good golfer. So you can assess things, you can compare things, you can make comparisons. That's a strength. I'll tell you about my eldest son. He has a high need to care, and he makes you feel you can trust him. He can hold the space for you. That's the essence of who he is that. My youngest son, who you're mates with.
Shout out, Matt.
One of his unique strengths is his set of visual skills, his spatial planning, his 3D vision, which is a gift that not many people have. And he can spot anything that's out of place visually. And things must be perfect visually for him. So if you want someone who pays attention to detail, you bring Matthew in, because Matthew will be that person. It doesn't have to be in architecture, which is what he's qualified for. He can apply that essence to anything. Just like Ryan can apply the high need to care, the building trust to anything. I didn't interview. I was at a wedding once with a 27-year-old. During drinks, while we were waiting for the bride and groom to come, I had this bunch of 27-year-olds around me because my niece was 27 and she got married. And as you can tell, I love young people. I love to hear how they think. And I started chatting to this woman of 27. And I said, so where do you work? What do? You make small talk. And she worked for one of the big banks. And I said, and what do you do for them? She said, I build financial products. And I said, that's fascinating. What did you qualify as? She said, an architect. And I went, oh, this is really interesting. She said, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a fashion designer, but my parents didn't think that was a valid qualification. So I did the next best thing and became an architect. we worked out that for as long as she is building things, whether it's a dress, designing a dress and making it, or whether it's a financial product or a house or a building, the essence of who she is that she is a builder. She can apply that to anything. Bumped into her a few years later and I said, "Are you still working for the bank?" She said, "No, not that one." She's now with Time Bank, which is a completely digital virtual bank. And she says, "I'm helping to build it from the bottom up." And she said, "I'm making dresses and designing clothes on the side." She's right in her sweet spot. But she's not an architect. That's what she studied. But she's taken the essence of it and she just adapts it along the way. So that's probably the best piece of advice I can leave for our listeners and our viewers today, is that every single life experience that you have, every qualification, every person you meet, forms part of the tapestry of the essence of who you are. And you carry all of that with you. Nothing is ever wasted or forgotten, even if you take a sideways move or a salary cut. All of that is building your talent profile, which is there to back you and tell your story. So always be adding to your story. Always be leveraging. Always be leveraging every single experience to build the story of you, because you are the masterpiece.
Thank you for today, Nikki. We've had a lot of people. A while ago, I actually put a poll out on Instagram asking people, which is normally my age group, let's say 24 to 30, asking what area of their life they want to grow in. And I thought maybe more mental health, personal development, but actually overwhelmingly it was about 60 to 70% said they want to grow in their career. And I hope that a lot of people can take from this conversation today steps, actionable steps, and ways to grow, not only personally, but also in their work life. How to win at work and life.
And let's just end with the fact that your work is just one expression of who you are. Your relationship with someone is another expression of who you are. And we need to constantly be seeking avenues of self-expression. And that is a very different way of looking at how you build a life and how you build a career than it was 50 years ago, where work was kind of the only way to build a life. And so let's go out there and put our essence out there to build incredible lives.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you for taking the time to sit down and have this chat with me. I think it's been amazing, and it's wild to look at us having a discussion, like you said, around a breakfast table, and for you to come and actually share some wisdom with the youth of today. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you get that I absolutely love you all, and I so believe in your potential. That's why they call me the human potential expert and the talent whisperer, because you are all just such huge bits of potential waiting to explode out there. And I just look forward to seeing how your career, just one case in point, what happens with your career. I'm going to be absolutely fascinated over the years to watch you. And I'm here for you. And one of the reasons why you've invited me here is because we're building this connection. And now you can always phone me. So if anybody wants more information, they can go and visit nikkibush.com. There's a lot of information on my website. It is a big website with a lot of advice for free. So please go and have a look. I also have a podcast, How to Win at Work and Life. You will also find that on my website. Lots of little drops of whispers of wisdom for young talent that you can take advantage of. But don't just listen and don't just read. Go and do.